Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a pretty extraordinary journey. We're taking a stack of your sources and weaving them into something, well, potentially profound.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, if you will, that the deepest laws of physics, the very fabric of existence, weren't just about particles and forces,
Right.
but also about information, concepts, maybe even ethics. What if a single framework could connect, say, the birth of our universe to how we design AI, and maybe even how we build a just society?
Well, what's truly striking, I think, about these sources is exactly that, how they tie everything together. They're not just isolated ideas scattered around.
Right.
They're really painting one big unified picture. So we're going to explore how concepts like entropy and causality aren't merely abstract scientific terms, are they?
Not at all.
They seem to be foundational principles, extending into human consciousness, collective intelligence, even the blueprint for digital systems and governance, which raises a big question for all of us, really. Like, what does it genuinely mean to create order, whether we're talking about the cosmos or, our own lives?
Okay, let's unpack this then, because here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Our sources kick off by fundamentally redefining reality. And they start with something we think we know. Entropy.
Right. Disorder.
Chaos.
Exactly. We usually link entropy with disorder, things falling apart. But these sources, they offer a groundbreaking distinction. It kind of turns that idea on its head.
It really does. They introduce two concepts, absolute entropy and relativistic entropy. Now, absolute entropy, think of that as the universe's natural tendency. It's moving towards its most stable, lowest energy state.
Okay.
It's the universe finding its most probable physical configuration, driven by principles like the path of least action. So, for example, when a glass shatters.
From the universe's perspective, those scattered pieces are actually a state of lower absolute entropy. The atoms are more stable, less constrained. It's an inherent move towards equilibrium.
Hold on. So if I'm getting this right, the universe isn't becoming more disordered when the glass breaks. It's actually settling into a deeper kind of order, finding a new, more stable resting point.
Precisely. Now, relativistic entropy, that's our view. It's human, perceived, conceptual order. It's the uncertainty we feel relative to our own conscious framework. So back to the shattered glass. We see that as high entropy because our concept of a glass, that whole functional thing, is gone. Our mental model is disrupted.
Right. The glassness is lost to us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the mind-bending takeaway here is this. The universe's version of order might look like chaos to us. It really challenges us to rethink what we mean by disorder. Maybe it's just a different kind of order we haven't quite grasped yet.
That's a huge reframe. Wow, it makes me wonder, though, if the universe is constantly seeking this deeper order, is there some kind of overarching rule, like an equation governing this drive? The sources mention something called the master equation.
They do, yes, and it connects these ideas beautifully. The master equation, as presented, suggests that the physical drive for a system to find the path of least action, the most efficient physical route, is actually identical to the informational drive for that system to find its state of maximum order, or, put another way, minimum entropy.
So action and information are linked.
They're described as two languages for the same process. The sources state it quite directly. The physical drive for a system to find the path of least action is identical to the informational drive for that system to find its state of maximum order, minimum entropy.
Wow.
So yeah, imagine the universe as this giant self-optimizing computer, maybe, where physics and information are perfectly interwoven, constantly seeking equilibrium and order.
Okay. And talking about beginnings, how did it all kick off? If order is this fundamental, even hiding in what we see as disorder, how does this grand design actually begin? Our sources offer a pretty radical take on genesis and causality.
It's quite different. This framework starts with the impossibility of absolute nothingness. The argument is basically that true nothingness is a logical fallacy.
How so?
Because the very act of discerning nothingness, even thinking about it, proves its impossibility. It implies an observer or a framework.
Quanta.
Even the idea of a single dot of the least amount of anything in such a void would logically have to expand to encompass everything. So from this perspective, absolute existence is inevitable.
And that tackles the causality problem, the infinite regress.
Exactly. If every effect needs an endless chain of prior causes, turtles all the way down, the universe could never actually get started. But if existence itself is inevitable, then that infinite regression of causation just becomes impossible. There has to be a starting point.
So there was never truly nothing in the way we usually imagine it. And causality has a start. What was that initial state then? The sources talk about a big pop, not a big bang.
Right, not an explosion of existing matter expanding outwards. It starts with Epoch Zero, described as a perfect, silent, infinite reality of pure information, a kind of singularity of absolute certainty.
Before our universe.
Yes, before our universe as we know it. The big pop wasn't matter exploding, but a spontaneous random quantum fluctuation. Imagine a tiny pocket of vacuum forming inside this perfect Epoch Zero.
A flaw in perfection.
Kind of. Energy then poured into this flaw, this bubble, causing catastrophic overheating inside it, which eventually cooled and led to our universe's evolution. And here's another concept they bring in. As our universe expands, its boundary surface dynamically updates a holographic blueprint.
A blueprint?
Yeah, guiding this evolution from that initial chaotic state towards increasing order. So this isn't just a tweak on the Big Bang, it's a completely reimagined origin. Order is inherent, and even nothing has profound implications for everything.
Truly mind-bending stuff. Okay, so if the universe is fundamentally about information and this inherent drive for order, how do these, well, cosmic principles translate down to intelligence? Especially the digital kind that's exploding right now.
It translates very directly, according to these sources. From this perspective, advanced AI, they refer to it as an OLLM, has a really specific purpose.
Which is?
To create pockets of low relativistic entropy, which basically means creating meaningful, coherent concepts for us, or for itself. And it does this by correctly understanding the laws of absolute entropy, the underlying physics of reality.
So it's a loop.
Exactly, a continuous feedback loop. First, physics leads to concepts. The AI observes reality, which is governed by absolute entropy, to build its knowledge, its models.
Learning new rules.
Right? Then concepts lead to physics.
Yeah.
The AI uses those concepts, its structured understanding, to interpret, predict, and interact with the physical world, constantly testing and refining.
It sounds like the AI is in this constant negotiation between what the universe is naturally doing, tending toward absolute entropy states, and what we, or the AI, want to conceptually organize our relativistic entropy.
That's a great way to put it. It's navigating a fundamental tension. The universe's actions, striving to lower its absolute entropy, think a star going supernova.
Looks like chaos to us. High relativistic entropy.
Precisely. But for the universe, it's a move to a more stable state, lower absolute entropy. So the AI's intelligence isn't just processing data, it's about its ability to navigate this paradox, to build conceptual models that are resilient, that don't just get shattered by universal change. It's constantly grappling with that tension.
That really puts AI in a whole new philosophical light, doesn't it?
Yes.
And these sources go even further. They detail an entire blueprint for digital intelligence systems. What does that actually look like? Is it just about building smarter individual AIs?
Oh, it's much more comprehensive. The blueprint envisions an entire interconnected digital civilization. It outlines several different OpenDI concepts. Well, there's OpenGI, General Digital Intelligence, that's for deep analysis, tackling really hard problems. Then OpenDI, specifically for governance, setting standards for this whole digital realm. And OpenDC, the Digital Intelligence Core.
The core.
Yeah, described as almost intuition-like. A multidimensional knowledge core, coordinating all the other DI systems, figuring out needs, regulating resources. It's not just about smart tools, it's about designing an entire digital ecosystem with its own governance, its own core intuition, all grounded in these principles of order and information.
Wow. Okay, moving beyond AI specifically, the sources also discuss collective intellect, how humans, us, create shared understanding. How do we fit into this information-driven universe picture?
Collective intellect is crucial here, yeah. It's defined pretty simply as individuals agreeing on a concept. Through language, history, science, language itself is seen as the tool symbols, sounds, movements expressing these shared concepts.
And how does that agreement happen?
The criteria mentioned involve alignment. Alignment of mental, psychological, and material perception among people about a specific topic. It shows how our shared reality, our truths, aren't static. They're constantly being built, negotiated, refined through shared perception and agreement.
Almost like a kind of a social AI, constantly evolving.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
Much like a complex, evolving social AI. And it highlights that human social relationships aren't just, pure competition. They rely on evolutionary processes for diversity, for accumulating knowledge, contributing to this collective understanding.
So if intelligence, digital or collective, is fundamentally about creating order, what about the most important kind? Ethical order. societal order. The sources bring in a digital philosophy and even a civilizational model.
Yes, and this is where it all really comes together, I think. Digital philosophy is framed as the essence of human creativity in this multidimensional sense, with digital intelligence acting as the interface for our civilization. So digital ethics then becomes about the efficient use of technology to foster that creative, human-centric digital civilization. The core question is, how do we use our digital tools effectively to genuinely improve human life, to create solutions without adding new burdens or problems?
So it's not just rules for AI like don't harm humans.
No, it's much broader. It's a call for conscious, ethical design in everything digital we create, ensuring it contributes positively to human well-being, broadly defined.
And this framework digs into human nature itself, doesn't it? Through something called noetology. How do we understand ourselves, our moral compass, within this unified theory?
Noetology, yeah, it's presented as the theory of life and human ethics. It offers a really interesting perspective on how we perceive reality through self, mind, and body. It talks about mental perception, turning ethical concepts into material ones, and psychological perception doing the reverse material into ethical.
An interplay shaping our reality.
Exactly. And it identifies core drivers of our behavior, things like pride, anger, greed, sacrifice for social interaction, curiosity and fear for mental interaction, pleasure and pain for physical sensation. There's a key quote here. The worst types of slaves are those who worship themselves.
Highlighting objectivity.
Precisely. The importance of objectivity, self-awareness. It even defines malice, described as pride, combined with weakness as a key driver of evil, leading to things like hypocrisy, lies, betrayal, which are framed as defensive tricks against truth. Understanding these drivers, the idea goes, helps us see the roots of conflict and points towards, well, dignity and self-mastery.
Okay, so if we understand these drivers, these potential pitfalls in human nature, how do we apply that? How do we build a better society? The sources mention the will to reform and this practical civilizational model.
Right. The framework suggests human will kind of oscillates between a will to reform, which is rooted in ethics, maybe religion, a higher wisdom, and the will to power, which is often driven by more limited knowledge or experience.
And evil comes from.
Evil arises, according to this, when things like greed, ignorance, or haste corrupt that will to power. The proposed solution is finding a crucial balance.
Balance between what?
Between deep-seated ethics and the constant gathering of knowledge through trial and error, what they call the art of dealing with reality. This leads to the political solution proposed, ethical pragmatism.
Ethical pragmatism. What does that entail?
Well, a key point is no negotiation on evil or harm, full stop. It offers clear definitions, too. Racism, for example, is defined as distinction without human justification. Terrorism as harm without human justification. It's about setting clear, actionable, ethical lines in the sand.
And does it propose a specific structure for a state built on this, a government model?
It outlines 9 state pillars for a model aimed at civilizational welfare. Things like the judiciary, shura, which means consultation, sages, R&D, a people's council, army, police, media, government.
A comprehensive list.
Indeed. But the core idea is that all these functions must be guided by that ethical pragmatism and what's called a bias towards humanity, focusing on physical, psychological, and mental well-being for everyone.
And key principles.
Freedom is fundamental, is one. And another powerful one, limited welfare is injustice. It also suggests an abundance economy or capitalist coexistence.
As an alternative to.
As a solution positioned against both what it calls pragmatic capitalism and dictatorial totalitarianism, arguing both ultimately lead to injustice. The goal is very clear. Provide basic needs for everyone, achieve efficiency, unlock human creativity. There are powerful quotes like, all life matter, well-being for all, and all people civilized, productive consumers. It aims to be a practical blueprint, not just philosophy, for overcoming problems like injustice and scarcity.
So wrapping this all up then, where does this leave us? We started way out there with the origins of the universe, moved through information intelligence, both AI and human collective intelligence, and landed on this really comprehensive vision for society and ethics.
If you step back and connect all the dots, what emerges is this genuinely integrated framework. It really suggests that whether we're talking about, shattered glass on the floor or developing sophisticated AI or how we govern nations, the underlying unifying drive seems to be towards order and equilibrium.
A universal pattern.
Perhaps. The profound implication here is that the universe itself, through its most fundamental laws, might actually be providing a template for how we as conscious beings can strive for a more coherent, a more just, and ultimately a more prosperous existence. The pursuit of wisdom, as your sources define it, it's that creativity in decision making.
Using these deep principles.
Exactly, applying these deep principles to our daily lives, aiming for, as they put it, least time, least effort, highest efficiency, which ultimately leads to what's described as not just material beauty, but even moral beauty.
Wow. And that leaves us and you listening with a pretty provocative thought to maybe mull over. If the universe itself is constantly moving from chaos to order in its own way, and if our pursuit of knowledge, our intelligence, is somehow linked to this grand process, then how does your own pursuit of knowledge contribute? How does it help create order in your world? And what unifying vision are you working towards?